What's up, what's up, what's up, folks? Okay, now I'm really back, I think, I hope. Woo! Do, 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 do. Aww. Who's fighting tonight? Hey, Cross Online. Who has come to fight and who has come to watch and learn? Alex J. Gustafsson, yes. Oof. All right. Boondock Striker, Dote Me Be. Beautiful. Can you join either arena, Kevin James? If you're kind of on the border, but all right, Alex is in chat. Alex, we got to watch one of your games last week, and we had a friend from your club cheering you on in chat. Somebody you know, OTB IRL. That was cool. That was really cool. They're very enthusiastic. Hey, Gefilte Fish. You saw it. Cool. Perfect. Perfect. Oh, yeah, when you watch the VOD, you can see the chat running too, huh? Yeah. The blow-by-blow of your own match. Rewatching it with others. It's cool. It's cool. It's like a giant post-mortem-y group kind of thing. Fair warning, gladiators, get your waters ready. It's going to be tough without the water. How do you know if you're in live chess? I don't know how to know if you're alive at all. Fight! So. Okay. All right, folks, I'll be right back. Got one more task to do. Keep telling other folks to join the events. Keep telling others to join the events. right, folks. Getting ready to start. To everybody on YouTube, Filet of Gefilte Fish sends you a greeting from over on Twitch. All right, and we do have 4 people in the over 1600 in the meantime, so the over 1600 will happen. Among them, a couple masters. Jeez. You made a try-hard join. Good work. Good work. All right. Folks, get ready. The games are going to start in 60 seconds, so make sure you are at your computers, live and all that. All right, see you later. See you on the VOD, Alex. Good luck with your games, everybody. And for those of you who are going to hang out with me, welcome to the commentary booth. My computer is struggling along like a real tin can piece of trash. I hope it'll last a little bit longer. We can hope. All right, here are the games. Here are the games. All right, we've got a Nimzo Indian over here. Let me open up another game. Kevin the Snipe over here. Let's open up the under 1600 tournament as well. And load up some games over here. One. Whoa. That one's going intensely. 2? Also intense. Oh, they're fighting early over here. 3? Oh, interesting. Oh, it's going to be a tense night. And Faugri and Dotneb. Advanced Karl Khan. Bishop gets out. This one comes here. My stream is dead? Let me see. My stream thinks it's alive. Okay, thanks Blunder Ghost. And everybody else. Fisher Seb. I'm glad the stream is dead for you. Yeah, this early bishop out here, going straight for the trade. Black plays e6, defending the piece and preparing to continue development through the e7 square. And there we are. Development is continuing. Good work. Good start for these two here. Now a choice for Falgri here around bishop takes h6. And chooses to just continue with normal moves. Totally fine. Bishop takes h6 was just an interesting question, which some players might ask themselves, should I do this? Should I break black's pawn structure or not? The answer is I don't know if you should or not, so maybe. We'll leave that as a question since we don't know the answer. Bishop f4 looks fine as well. Now black comes up to the question of, do I castle or do I play one of these pawn structure counters before castling? Chooses to castle, perfectly reasonable. Oh, you wonder if his name is Foie Gras, huh? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, just like a gefilte fish to wonder about, to interpret things in that way. But I really don't know. I don't know the meaning of Falgri. If we turn it around, does it mean something? Ergwaf? Not really. Grafau, if it were Verlan? No. Uh-oh, Fisher said risking disconnection with that internet. Game might get adjudicated by chess.com servers. That's what you don't want. That's what you don't want. What do I have over here? Oh, this viral stigma never enough game. Yeah, I still wanted to learn something about this position. So I've got like all these positions open that I was curious about. I think that's what's causing my computer to crash. It can't handle having, 2 or 3 windows open, 2 or 3 tabs open. That's good to hear, Stamen. Thank you. Knight b5. Yeah, nice. Maybe looking at coming in here and maybe freeing up the c-pawn. So, a couple clear purposes there. And if black takes, you can also consider putting this knight on d4. c5 makes filet gefilte fish nervous for black. Maybe, but it's what you got to do. That's chess. You have to play c5 as black in this pawn structure. You've got these 2 pawns. White's got these 2 pawns. You have to play c5. That's it. Them's the breaks. Them's the rules. Trade comes in. Yeah, whatever's looming, you got to do it. You have to counter white center. It only gets worse if you don't. One thing I would say is I was considering from black's perspective here the possibility of trading and putting this knight on f5. That looked to me like a good idea to try that. Okay. Dotnev's pieces, they just want to breathe, they just want some space. Oh, you were thinking that gefilte fish? Okay, so you're looking at a very precise level. I think at a precise level it does make sense to bring the knight to f5 before releasing tension in the center. This option here ought to be better for black than the one in the game, if you want to know, frankly speaking, because you improve this knight that's not on a good square. Whether or not white's going to take it, it's not on a good square on h6. So you improve it, you increase the pressure here. If white takes, it's obviously not a problem for black. So this is clearly the preferable variation from black's perspective. And the game trades comes in. And honestly, yeah, white could have taken on h6, like Stayman's saying. In the game, white took on d4. Stayman's saying maybe take here, and I don't know if you're thinking the Stayman, but you could maybe take the pawn on h6 and wait to take d4 later because it's surrounded by 2 knights already. It sure is, Jake. A commitment not to be taken lightly. You definitely do not need to be playing at 8 p.m. if you're an East Coaster. This is more a time for people in Asia and Africa and Europe. And if you're an American, maybe if you're on the West Coast and your job didn't hurt you too much today. But otherwise, tomorrow there's plenty of time when you could play. That might be better. Yep. Kenya. Right now is a decent time to play if you're in Kenya. I mean, Friday Night Fights at the moment is kind of at a slightly bad time, maybe. You know, it's just the time that worked for me, I'm afraid, so. It's just how it is. Let's see what's going with this game. Knight c5, takes, knight d4. Nice, making good use of this pawn. Yeah, the thing is I can't do Friday afternoon fights, you know, because in the afternoon I'm with the kids. See what's happening here. Nimzo. Trade. Interesting that white didn't take with the c pawn here. Yeah, exactly, Sokolov. Starting the stream is actually a warning for people to come and join the event partly. That's why I try and get the stream started 20 minutes before the games start to give people time to figure out how to join the tournaments or to be reminded of them. And I don't love the idea of leaving the stream running for a really long time without a commentator. I think, you know, we don't want to have a tradition of low quality streams. You know, for somebody who's not playing to come by and see just like an empty chair for half an hour and like there will be a tournament, there will be a show is kind of a long time. Maybe if we had a full album of chess raps, we could just play a full album as an intro for an hour. But I mean, another thing would be awesome is if somebody could do a show right before Friday Night Fights, right? Like if somebody could do a show that leads into it, and during that show, there's an announcement running that Friday Night Fights is coming up. But right now, the timing here in the evening doesn't work for Kostya or Jesse to join or run something right beforehand. So this is what we've got. I wonder if eventually it might not be possible for Jesse or Kostya to do 1 or 2 hours right before it in like evening time for them. Maybe that's something we could work out eventually. Okay, so ED4, bishop D7, here. I thought white would just castle here. Two knights versus two bishops. Wow. Yeah, happy hour with Nordovic. Yeah, any kind of lead-in show that I didn't have to be there could be a good idea. I'll put that on my 10-mile mental list of things that would be nice to arrange. Bonjour, Elise. Another thing I want is a backup host so that some nights I can play instead of commentating. I'd like to just, tag in/out every now and then. So we've got a real controversy here. I mean, black played bishop c6, saying they wanted to take the knight, and white ignored them, saying they didn't care, and black said you should have cared, and so here we are, two very different opinions from these two players. Be right back. Ooh. Just a lot going on. What can I say? Just a lot going on. Okay. Kevin James has a plan. I think black can go knight d7. b6. I don't know what b6 is for. Rook c8. Rook d8. Oh, the knight d7 to b6, not the pawn to b6. That makes so much more sense. Rook c8, rook d8. No, you were good. I just didn't see it because where it lined up, it had a line break randomly for me, so I didn't look carefully. Then knight c4, knight d5, and occupy the outposts. That would be amazing. It is a many move plan, so obviously, white has a chance to do some things as well, as you're obviously aware. Yeah, so Lebanese Salah goes knight c6, perhaps with plans of just sort of playing e5 and breaking up the center and creating a more dynamic rather than a static and blockadey approach, right? To the exact same position. Play it a completely different way. Open the center for the knights, yeah. The thing is, the theory about open or close has changed a bit over time. And the key is, can the knights establish some kind of good squares for them to be on? That's the more overarching principle in theory. So, actually, if white center is restricting your knights, then you, as the defender, might want to trade some of your opponent's center so your knights can be happier. Blockadey would make more sense for my brain, says Sokolov, because the opponent has the bishop pair, right? And see, that would have been the case for me some years ago as well, but I have learned to adapt a little bit to some of the new knowledge and ideas that have come out, White with the bishop. There are many positions now where the bishop pair want time to slowly restrict the knights. And whoa, funky move. And so the knights want to do something kind of more concrete and initiative-y to establish squares for themselves. So this move, rather than rook b1 with the other rook, because this pawn would be hanging. And I think White is envisioning, rook fb1. White's envisioning kind of a, full-on queen trapping style operation. Yeah, it's something that Morozevich and even Chigorin before him would have done. So it wasn't like accepted canon understanding of what was going on in chess. Does that make sense? Like there are many chess concepts that players many years ago used, but somehow the basic understanding of what they were doing as written in the history books didn't fully take into account that, because in general when you're writing a narrative, it's it's easier to have a slightly more simpler narrative than a slightly more complex narrative, right? So they've kind of simplified and flattened out what was the romantic school of chess. Yes, gambits and sacrifices, and you had to be brave and honorable and accept the sacrifices, right? And then what was the hypermodern school, and what did Botvinnik bring to chess, and so forth. And basically almost all of us are guilty of the same thing, of sort of flattening out and simplifying the associated narratives, right? Alekhine introduced dynamic positional play, right? In other words, like the aggressive use of dynamic positional advantages. Capablanca had like perfect endgame intuition, blah, blah, blah. Every time we say these things, they're simplifications, right? So in fact, there are people who liked knights 150 years ago and did some things that have now been rediscovered by modern players and engines. And some of that stuff is a real surprise, and some of it a little bit less so. A6, B5, and knight A5. Yeah, I mean, there is a dream in this kind of structure of controlling the light squares and setting up a blockade that makes one of your opponent's pieces bad. It's harder to do here, I think, with the bishop pair and the rooks being mobile and the A4 break. One big problem with B5 is anytime White could play an A4 break. And when you play B6 and go knight A5 and rook C8, they also still try to play A4, A5 sometimes to break up the healthier pawn structure of the opponent. But here, you're going to see, I think, from what I see so far, that Fischer Seb is trying to take advantage of some of the weaknesses near the white king and play more dynamically and actively than just trying to control everything and hold it in one way. So bishop e2, preparing maybe f4 at some point, rook c8. You can answer knight takes d4 to almost any move. Also for now, f4, queen takes e2 is a good answer. Queen a4, stepping out of the way of the rook. Wow, that's several moves in a row that this b-pawn has been hanging, right? And that's a sign of how dynamically black's playing, that they're not just creating a setup with the pawn on b6, right? They're really fighting. Could they play e5 next here? Looks plausible that they could. They are playing quite fast so far, Jake, yeah. They seem much more confident than I would be. I would tend to go into a deep think at least once in this position to really orient myself to what I'm really trying to do. You know, get a clear idea of my priority because I don't know the position well enough to have that priority without some thought. Now, some people might glance at the position and know the priority, and it might be as obvious to them as it was to me in this structure here. Just as to me it's obvious in this structure that black has to play c5, right? For other people, it might be just as obvious that in this structure here, blah, 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 whatever they're doing, you know? But for me, it's not, so I can't do it that fast. Okay. Elise is saying if black went for e5, there would be d5. I thought I could take if white played d5, Elise. You're thinking something super complicated like this, huh? With this idea. But they do have this f4 square and probably defend everything. But yeah, my idea with e5 was, that they couldn't play this, I thought. And so I'm trying to, create this situation here. And now the knights are they're just going to fight, fist to fist. They'll find some square somewhere. And it was just my read on what Fischer said was up to. It felt like e5 was one of the moves he had in mind. And maybe it was, and for some reason knight d5 is better here, or e5 didn't quite work, but that was my read. If I were white and my opponent played these moves, my read would be, oh, my opponent's gunning for e5. Right, so knight d5 was the move. White's thinking now, if c4, there's knight takes d4. Yeah, white has fled the king side. Although they did bring the bishop back to e2. But, I mean, c4, knight takes d4 is not good news. What black has in mind against rook b7, I don't know specifically, actually. That might be surprisingly a possible move. White says, okay, show me what you're up to. Sack that pawn, but watch yourself. Now show me what you're working with. Well, Fischer Stud will probably show us what they're working with here. I noticed the c3 pawn not very well defended, but this knight has no good moves to uncover the attack. Knight e7 is a bit passive, and you can't play knight c3 with the knight on e7 either. Moving this knight's also going to leave a7 hanging. Did my stream zoom out? I don't know. Maybe the video camera got smaller or something? Now I made it too big. I don't know. Right. Okay. So let's see if any of us can guess what Fischer Seb has in mind. Right. So one guess here from Jake is knight b6, trapping the piece in. But how would we ever attack it, right? To trap it, how would we ever attack it? My first instinct also, fillet fish, was to head towards the king side. But let's look at this idea. Here's one move that might make sense. Queen b5, coming over this way and allowing this pawn to come up. Yeah, exactly. We have to get in the head of who would play this way and what they have in mind, right? What they're going for here. Exactly, exactly what Jake just said. To attack this rook, it feels like we have to move this knight to attack it, in which case we'd always be hanging the a pawn, in which case we would never be trapping the rook. Queen g6, queen g5, queen c2. Strangely bothersome, right? Indeed, Sokolov, it is a weird move and a weird position and a weird pawn sack. By the way, black has played f5 in a minute and change. So, in general, that's toward the king side. Definitely not an obvious move. King h1. This rook can't go to h6 really because the bishop's on h6. But maybe with the rook on f6 you could play knight takes c3, bishop takes c3, rook h6. So maybe rook f6 threatens that. Now knight d5 makes a lot of sense, says Elise. Yeah, I guess it was played to grab some space over here and go absolutely bonkers. But rook f6, rook g1 is going to defend most things that I'm seeing here. Rook f6 is played. And rook g1 comes in seconds. Yeah. There goes another pawn over here. Queen a7 looks like a very likely move. Trying to gang up on the 7th rank. Can c4 be played as well here? Looks like a candidate move as well. Huh. I don't see how black has any kind of a position here. Huh. Yeah, c4 looks good to me. Queen a7 played first. Okay, also looks good. First move I mentioned. Second move was c4. Idea is to play rook takes knight and just break through along this second rank, get to g7 before black can come up with a mating pattern. Knight e7 can't really move because of g7 hanging. Let's see what black's doing. I mean, it really just looks like it's not possible for black, what they're doing. Sack in g7. Holy moly. Wow. Holy moly. Thank you, Elliot Anderson Chess, for the raid. Elliot Alderson. I may have said that wrong. Welcome, Raiders. This is Friday Night Fights. I'm David Pruess. I am generally well. Quite tired today, but the show that you are now seeing here is a show in which people play classical games against each other and we comment. I didn't see another candidate, really, no. But, like, you could play here. Whoops, sorry, that's a mouse slip. I thought my mouse was on E8. But as far as I can tell, C4 would also crush. I don't know what black's doing. It looks very much crushing for white to me. See you around, Elliot, and thanks again. Get some rest. Get some rest. That's a great thing to do. KB says maybe queen h4. What's the idea, KB, after queen h4, rook e7? Yeah, to me it looks just winning for white. Unfortunately, you can't vote me GM, Rohit. I would have to actually go out there and do a whole lot of work on my game. And that's just not in the cards for me. Right now, I feel like I couldn't even solve 2 or 3 minutes of puzzles. My brain is so battered from the baby's lack of sleeping this week. Oh, it's so brutal. Dashing Devil taking things very seriously. Taking their time and calculating here. Rook g7, king h8. And things aren't decided yet, so I guess rook g7, king h8, rook f7 is an interesting question. Is that per baby viral stigma? Or is that an average total? Just in general. The past weeks, I got tired around 11 p.m. during Friday Night Fights. And today I'm like tired. I was tired 2 minutes in. 8:02. It feels like it's per baby. Okay. No truth to it, just a thing to say. Yeah. And remember, folks, after all these fights, there will be a short period to sleep, and then there will be Saturday morning viewer rapid tournaments. Those links and info can be found with !play. For anyone who's not already too tired. To me, I like this because the idea is, whoops, God, my mouse is all over the place tonight. The idea is we're trading off a potential attacker, and we're making room for our queen to get closer to their king, right? We're ultimately wanting to get this diagonal open, maybe with c4, d5. All right, so we had a move, I think, and a draw offer. Rook g7, king h8, draw offer. Yeah. So rook f7 looks good to me. Somebody was saying something with bishop g5. Oh, I see. Bishop g5, rook f8, f4 was a suggestion here. And Jake's point is queen takes bishop, check here, and Matanovic. Wow. So that f4 move is killer. The queen's attacked and she's got more or less nowhere to go, right? As far as I can see, that's the other square. And then rook g3 and she's out of squares. It's a good line, Jake. Makes bishop g5 look even better than rook f7, doesn't it? This is the live position, folks. White to move. Yeah. That seems powerful, bishop g5. Okay, so that's the live position. Let's pop over to our second game over here. Catch up. We'd been here. Knight e4 was a nice move from Doutney using those pawns on f5 and d5 that might look like slightly weak pawns. One is isolated, the other's doubled. But if you can use their outpost, then you feel their power. Uh-oh. Who's defending on the knight? Oh! And she retreats with her ill-gotten gains, and black goes back on the attack. Well, that was unfortunate. White dropped the knight in that sequence. Let's see how it happened. The queen starts moving, starts getting kicked, and drops the knight, yeah. Here, maybe a move like rook d1 would be more like what White's looking for. Or maybe this move to ensure that that pawn is weak, and then rook d1. Overprotecting the queen and knight. Trying to play knight f5 or queen h6. Huh. Looks pretty reasonably strong for white as a way to try and take advantage of the unusual pawn structure here from black. So white played queen e3, get hit by knight g4. Kevin James wondered if g5. Looks pretty good too, Kevin, yeah. Maybe there's one issue. If white goes here and you go here, oops, mouse slipping again. Take it here. Okay, here black's winning. Cleaned up the king side area. Here we go, queen maybe to defend this. One, two, three, four, five, 6, 7 against 5. 2 pawns for white. If you get the third pawn, it's 3 pawns for white. Maybe black can play bishop g5, and we can't really bother black that much. But at the moment, this looks, I mean, a little difficult for black compared to how bad things started. So that might be good for black. This was probably also good for black. Wow, wild battle, right? I mean, the extra knight, in theory, could take it, but the position is really messy with g5 destroying black's castle king position. And white still having some kind of space and structure in the center. White to play. If there is a theme to this game, opines Stamen, it is that taking on h6, winning a pawn, disturbing the kings, etc. was available forever. Yeah, there might have been a good moment this game for white to play bishop takes h6. Before it looked like this. h3. I think it's a good move. It's what I expected. So, at a minimum, this was my instinct as well, Falgry. Idea to maybe send the knight here where it might not be so good and then take the e-pawn. Black's thinking, at one level, h6 looks like the only square for the knight, but what else might black be looking at? Are there counterattacks? Are there tactics? Sinking in with the knight doesn't look good to me. I feel like you just get the knight trapped after the e-pawn goes. Kevin James gives me a suggestion of something that looks like a tactic. It's sack the knight and then rook takes. Now g2's hanging. I think I only see one move. So let's have a look. Follow up for black. D2. F5 is illegal. H5, G4 is possible. It goes super crazy. King can't move at the moment. Yeah, I mean, I think this sacrifice doesn't quite do it for black, you know. Black's position's okay, but you're not pumped to give up your extra knight for that. Knight f2 was played in the game. Okay. So I thought after rook e3 that knight would still be wandering pretty poorly. After rook e3, I don't know what else that knight's going to do. Yeah, Far Eastern, there's a logic in the pairings where they try to pair people with opponents who are close to them in rating. As close as possible. As it can do. Okay, Kevin says from the white perspective that they'd be very happy to see this knight f2 move. It starts to feel like white's back in the game after this. So if white goes rook takes e3, that'll be 2 pawns against the knight, but the knight, not clear how it's getting in the game. I guess it can escape through e4. Good job using the time. Our other game. Oh man, look at that. Dashing Devil played Jake's suggestion. You see that, Jake? Oh, you scored some points right there. Oof. Truly, truly killer. Well, that's game over for Dashing Devil. The pawn sack, we never really saw a scenario that could explain how it would work. It seemed like black never had anything concrete. Here's a game where both players are really using their time. Classical Prep and M. Norris Chess. Knight, Bishop, Rook. Knight, Bishop, Bishop, Rook. So this is an exchange sack somewhere in here. Black's got the light scored Bishop against a Rook. Looks like white should have the advantage. But, you know, it's not necessarily easy. Positions with extra exchanges are generally not easy. They can be really hard to keep control of and pressed to a win. In fact, I messed one up this past year in a tournament game. I played a little bit too fast at one point in the end game, and then found that my winning plan didn't quite work, and then I just couldn't find my way. I don't know about that, Jake. I think playing against White's king and the whole board made a lot of sense. I just think that concretely, like, rook takes b7, sack, didn't quite do it. And we appreciate you joining, Fisher Seb. We appreciate you joining. Very much. And very sorry about what happened. I try hard as somebody like me, Kevin James. It's somebody who always tries hard. Yeah. Like, for example, Kevin, there's a lot of people like Jesse, for example, right? Uncle Jesse, the Boomer GM. He often says to me, like, nobody can really play classical online and play it seriously and take it seriously. And I say, yes, I can, you know. But to him, if you're playing online like this, it's, you know, it can't be serious. You can't put in an effort like you do in a classical game at a tournament, right? So I, you know, I play a random game like this as if I were in a tournament. And I think that's what it means by try hard. You know, just always taking things super seriously. Yeah, I mean, and maybe you take it seriously, Far Eastern, you know, and fair enough if for Jesse he doesn't, right? But some people do. And some people can, you know. When he thinks no one can do it, that's not correct either, right? Some people can take it seriously, some people can't. All right, so let's see what M. Norris played here. Took the pawn. Yeah, that's what I was kind of expecting. I mean, not that e4 was a bad idea either, Jacob. It makes sense as well. I guess a big question there is maybe this bishop coming to d6 quickly. You still kind of want to grab the pawn here, 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 here. Here, and black's very tied up. I guess if the knight moves, they lose this piece. This can't move. This can't move. Both bishops are pinned. The knight's tied down. And white's kind of going to go knight d5 and then knight b6 or knight e7. Looks tough. So in the game, black chose to just grab the pawn, and white trades to open things up. And also that wins a pawn because the bishop can't take because of this, and the knight can't take because of the bishop. So taking looks quite good for white, and I think this rook on a8 is really hurting M. Norris, right? It's really tying up multiple black pieces. You know, even if you've got your king off this rank, you couldn't yet move the bishop because of your rook. Your knight can't move. So yeah, it's brutal for black, and I think still bishop b4 to d6 is a clear plan for white. King e7. All right. I mean, that move really seems to invite bishop b4 check to me, to my eyes. And that's the move I wanted to play anyway. I guess black will play knight c5. Keep the game going, yeah. Ooh. Wow. That sounds far out, Far Eastern. Playing chess at a food truck fest out on the grass next to a beach on an island. Bishop b4, knight c5, knight d4 coming in hot. Good solid moves from both sides. Bishop on b5 gets tempoed, has to retreat somewhere. Depending where it goes, there's a few options for white, but one of the more obvious options is rook c1. Another one is likely to be knight b3. That's why you can go after this knight to try and simplify the position. You're in a game, Far Eastern, and you don't even know you're in a game? Far Eastern. Oh, maybe you just had a game that you lost without even seeing it, huh? That's lame. I'm sorry. Got another game here. Let's see, is it a Caro kind of thing? Yeah, it's a C5 Caro. Queen G4. White seems to know what they're doing. Well, on the one hand, they know what they're doing. They're playing good moves. On the other hand, they're spending a lot of time. So it's not like they knew the opening by heart or anything. So we could say White's figuring out what they're doing instead of White knows what they're doing. New chess expression. White's figuring out what they're doing. Norris might actually be considering bishop c4. It stops knight b3 and it blocks rook c1 from going after this piece. If b3, you have to keep moving, but now at least the knight can't come to b3. Rook c1. I guess rook c8, hoping to hold it together. That might be worth trying. Like, I don't see you can definitely challenge each other at SP 671 and Far Eastern if you want to. All right, Norris made a choice and went for bishop c4. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good choice. There's basically in this position I just looked at, black's still under pressure, but it hasn't cracked. I don't see a winning tactic for white to make any more progress. And that's often the best you can do when you're behind, right? Is just not let the opponent make obvious progress. Not let them, win anything. White played b3, bishop a6. Yeah, similar to bishop d3, just getting out of the way, and now there's no knight b3. Highfalutin by Norris, and that's what was needed for some defense here. Yeah, Elise, if there were no pawn on b7, this knight c6 thing would sting in contact with these two tactical squares. If this, which means that if this rook were on a1, right, then you could do this. Like that, and sort of trade everything off. Super fancy. All right, but rook c1 was the move going after this knight. And now, analogous to my bishop d3 line, I would expect rook c8, and I don't see anything clear for white. Maybe there's some evil to be had in bishop a3, looking at b4, b5. Ooh. Oh, and my crazy variation, Elise? The lots of captures variation. Where is it? I mean, it depends where this king should have gone and all. But like if here, for example, here, 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 and here, here. So it depends on where the king goes in response to these checks. But general, you would expect the knight to be able to catch it. And if it doesn't, it's actually close enough for the king to catch too. Okay, but you know, that was just to show the rook takes a6 threat. I didn't defend it at all as black. Just let it happen. All right. I'm a 1599 today, folks. I've guessed a whole bunch of these nice defensive moves from M. Norris. Very nice. If black can maneuver this knight to a7, the blitz player in you wants to play f6 and hope white doesn't notice this. That kind of hoping will not get you very far in classical chess. No offense intended, obviously, but just a dose of reality. Oh, can we do that at least? Can we just go with the b pawn here? Yeah. C4, B5, as Elise said, would be really the end of this. The closest thing that I see to a way to keep playing Elise would be something like taking the knight and giving the second exchange, which I will freely admit is no kind of hope. But just to say, I don't see anything better than that against your idea, yeah. With the bishop on d3, I looked at this move and it didn't seem to do as much because black played c4 and the bishop was on d3 and couldn't be trapped or anything. I didn't see a next follow-up for white. But here, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. Let's see. So here we've got classical prep thinking, and potentially they could try and go for that bishop c5, b4 line. And my other idea is bishop a3, with the idea of playing b4, maybe trading the rook or something, and then b5. Notice the rook's also hanging right now, so b4 looks very scary. That is one of the best things about being two exchanges up, Elise, especially if it's two bishops. You can't put your rooks anywhere safe when there's two bishops, so just trade one of them for a bishop and then play a simple ending. Is often the way to go. Do I miss France? Yeah. Yeah, I really liked it in France. But I've got lots of good things going on here too. So I don't want to give the wrong impression on that. I loved it in France, but here I've got a lot of good stuff. I got good friends. Even though I seem this tired, I've been mostly sleeping better and exercising still. probably exercising more because there's a gym a couple blocks from my house. But, the trade-off is I'm not walking everywhere all the time now as much. Saw a bunch of friends tonight, The bread and butter are better, yep. But that's not especially what I've been missing. I haven't really been thinking too much about bread and butter, Been thinking more about how calm it is and how you just go out for a little stroll and bump into people and have a nice chat. Stroll into a little local art gallery. Check out some drawings from some old guy or old gal in town. Somebody who's drawn or painted the ocean. Then you go stare at the ocean yourself for a while. Classical Prep plays this move. This is my first idea for how to make progress in the situation. I didn't calculate if black had any defenses, but I just vaguely thought it looked pretty strong. It's a little hard to imagine a defense to this, right? The black pieces are kind of at the bursting point. This rook's undefended here. So 2 minor pieces are kind of pinned to that rook, so to speak, or there are these hidden attacks between the rooks. I will probably come back to France someday, Socrates. Maybe I'll go somewhere else too. Not only did I love the experience of being in France, I really found I loved the experience of being somewhere new and different. Which made me think like, hey, maybe, go spend a year in 3 or 4 different countries, 3 times or something. And when I was younger and playing chess professionally for a short period of time, I was traveling a ton all over the place, and I got a little bit tired of it, and felt like, okay, yeah, I've been all over the place, and now I'm, a little bit tired of traveling all the time, and it seemed like a lot of resources with all the airplanes and stuff, right? So, but I think now I've traveled very little for 10 years as I raised a family here. I stopped traveling for chess probably in 2012 or 13, probably even, a couple of years before I had my first kid. So now suddenly I feel like, going new places seems really cool. And it could be anywhere, Doses Dose. Yeah, it could be anywhere. I think somewhere in South America would be really fun or interesting. I have, and this is perhaps a little bit random, but I have a special spot in my heart for Bolivia. So that's a tempting thought. And my one cousin, I have one cousin, period. My one cousin lives in Peru. He's not from Peru, but he's been living there for a long time. He's settled. He started a family. So his family is now, he's He's become Peruvian. He's adopted Peruvian. You know. That might be somewhere else to go. High altitude, yeah. I wonder if high altitude would be a problem for me. I don't really know. 36 cousins. Hard to know where they all are then, huh? So my chess travels were largely in Europe because that's where a lot of the best chess tournaments are, right? Oh, and this b4, b5 plan wins. Yeah, this is a variation I'd analyzed, was that after bishop a3, if you move your king to d7 or d8 to defend the rook and get off of this pin that I drew incorrectly. Whoops, let's close this. So if you move the king to defend the rook against this attack and get off of this attack, then white can play b4 when the knight moves, trade the rooks, and then play b5. And that's exactly what happened. So I'd say props to classical prep for finding that bishop a3 idea. And then just bang. Socrates tells me go to Bolivia. Life is short. Classical prep offers a post-mortem to M. Norris. Right on. Love to see it. You know, I don't have like such a great reason for the Bolivia thing, you know? I don't know. I don't really know how to, you know, it's almost like a childish kind of thing. You know, at some point when I was young, I just had to do some research papers in college, and I just picked in a couple different classes. I just picked Bolivian related topics for whatever reason, and wrote those research papers, and just felt weirdly interested and connected forever. Knight e6, and the game goes on. Oh, does knight d3 or knight e6 make a big difference here, I'm Norris? Knight e6. Rook takes. King takes. Oh, you want to take this knight to control this b5 square? Is this the idea? Is this supposed to be the difference, I'm Norris? What I studied. So, the major I was studying for at that time, Elise, was political economy. And one of the classes was like a geography class, and another was a history class. And so I did a paper on water policy in Bolivia, and another on the history of the founding of Bolivia. Yeah, Stamen, your bridge is a similar story to my chess. I think here white could take here to convert this line. So at this point, I think when white finds bishop a3, I don't think you have a defense after bishop a3. This I didn't see anymore here. A defense at this point. I would have to do some more modern research on Bolivia before just showing up there with my family and no idea what we were doing. Like, it was hard enough moving to France, a country that I visited 10 times, and still it was hard to figure out things like how do you find a place to live and how do you get connected to the internet and stuff like that. But I mean, the research can be done, and yeah, maybe that's something we should do. All right, let's check another game. I think at this point it was kind of lost. M. Norris is allowing bishop d2 was a big mistake. Let's see if we can find where this bishop d2 moment is. Contribute to the... Why not just back up after bishop d2? Objectively better to retreat, yeah. You just didn't like the position. Yeah. In general, M. Norris, how do you feel about positions like this one? Like queen takes b6. If you're playing a sort of Slav kind of structure, I could imagine that you've had these queen b3, queen b6 lines before at some point. Everyone's got their own experience of them. Do you normally feel comfortable or uncomfortable with these doubled B pawns and the A file? Sometimes it's really good for the side with the doubled pawns. Sometimes it's really bad for the side with the doubled pawns. Sometimes it's equal, but... You kind of know them. Okay. So you don't normally particularly do well or badly with them. It's just something you've seen a few times. Yeah. Yeah, I think you probably did fine till here, M. Norris. And now here maybe you need to go bishop d6 and king e7 faster and just save the tempo on that rook move. That's kind of like my hindsight from seeing how the game goes, where white eventually is going to get a tempo with bishop d2. And the move a4 is not bad for white. It's perfectly good for white, right? Up to here, nothing you've done looks bad. I mean, I don't know if everything's the best possible move, but to me, something like this looks reasonable here. Because if takes... You've got terrible pawns, but you've got really good pieces. Or they could go here, offload the bishop to keep the knight from coming out nicely, but still, now you've got the bishop pair, plus you've got the rook coming to c2 really fast while you're ahead in development. So I think you'll get away with the bad pawn structure here. Like rook d1, Elise... I'm inclined to just develop the rooks and not even defend pawns, right? And just come here. Oh, and some other line that I did wrong. This line here, rook d1. Okay. Is there something special about this? M. Norris was concerned about knight c3. Trying to do this. Yeah, I can understand that. Knight f4 similar, right? Either one, M. Norris. Knight c3 or knight f4 maybe. Yeah, you might have to sack it. But it's your pawn, and somehow I feel very comfortable sacking your pawn. Okay, and you said, what about bishop b4 versus for bishop d6? Which is why I went for rook a5, because if knight c3, d4. I see. So you were already worrying about the health of this pawn. So when I'm playing this move here, you might not even think white's going to spend a move on d4, right? You might already be worried that it's going to be something like this straight away, and you just don't know what to do about this pawn, right? I guess here you can play d4 to try not to lose the pawn. But somehow this threat is looking pretty annoying. Huh. It's weird that this would be so hard to deal with, this one knight wheeling around towards us. Did you see that? I didn't really deal with this move. It's weird to me, M. Norris, because look at white's pieces. They're not using these three. They're just using one knight and bishop, and somehow I'm kind of not sure how to deal with it. Normally, such a minimal attack would not beat you. Like, you would just look and there'd be a way to defend it. Here, I honestly don't see a defense. Very weird. Very weird. I'm disturbed. I don't see any defense for black. Like, time to resign. We're going to lose to knight b6. We're going to start losing material. Oh, Elise, yeah, maybe e6 instead of e5. I mean, going way back, right? Like here, because e5 is partly to free this bishop, but this bishop's already good. Maybe just e6, just developing. I mean, it's surprising, but yeah, I mean, you could ask that question, but even still, how is it that this move is crushing me? I almost feel like this is a puzzle I should try and solve for myself. Black to play and not get busted. Well, that's the thing, Fish Chess. M. Norris tried rook a5 for exactly this reasoning. And white just played a4, defending the bishop, and then it didn't lead anywhere. So we're looking for an improvement on rook a5. And I have not found it yet. Yeah, I don't see it. Mind-boggling. Awesome, Striker. Awesome. Well, M. Norris, I mean, there's a lot to learn here, right? This was tricky. So you're saying maybe with your rook a5 line, what you want to do is then put the bishop on b4, so there will never be this bishop d2 thing. And then if white takes, and takes, you might win the game with bishop d3. And even if you didn't have that, you would have, b5 and either rook a8 or rook c8. But you would have easy compensation for the pawn sack in a lot of lines, probably. This move might immediately win the game for you. So bishop b4 instead of d6. Wow, what a difference that makes, M. Norris. Nice find. Nice find. That's instructive, because I thought the rook a5 move looked bad. But with this, yeah, I can understand what you're going for here. And actually, controlling these squares is pretty significant. Even like rook d1, you just send the rook back to f1, right? That's the end. Cool. Well, M. Norris, I know at the moment that the game ended, you were frustrated about some potential oversight, right? One or two moves you weren't happy with. But I think if we can learn something like this, and you each put some good time into the game, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. We got something out of it. And by the way, I'll just say your opponent classical prep in the chat after the game said want to analyze. So maybe this is a dojo where you could play again in the future and talk to about the games afterwards. Anybody who wants to do postmortems is somebody that I'm like, ooh, maybe this is somebody for me. Alex J. Gustafson, Boondock Striker, is saying that you gave them the kind of great game that they can't find outside of Friday Night Fights. Oh yeah, I saw this opening here and thought this is going to be a wild game too. Castling. Going towards the king, going towards the king. Threatening the e4 pawn. Not defending the e4 pawn. Taking the e4 pawn. Oh, the battle is on. They're fighting. Oh, the queen tries to cover the queen h6 mating patterns. Nice. What a d5, defending the knight and opening the defense of h6. Oh, man. Oh, man. Now, at this point, I noticed that Alex is 20 minutes ahead on the clock. Yeah, just desperately grabbing space in front of their own king to block the white pieces out. Yeah. Woo! Tactico. Oh, and you made it to the endgame. Made it to the endgame with the extra pawn intact. And white has to find ways to pressure the endgame. Ooh, I love that. Trying to play an initiative for a pawn in an endgame is a hard thing to do. I'm just... So I don't love it. I love that you were forced to do something hard and I get to watch you try. I think white probably has compensation for the pawn. Oh, there's an evil trick here. Knight g3, rook g5 check. Definitely evil. E6, a more solid move, just defending the f-pawn. Developing. Trying to get something going. Opening up space near the black king. But it's just not working. Black's defending everything. Wow. Good knight versus bad bishop. Nice rooks on the h-file. There's continuing... Oh, the move that Jesse loves. Letting the bad bishop out. Bishop e4, exactly. Whew. It's getting hot. Tradovich. I was going to say, why don't you get your pawn back? Okay, the bishop, sneaky, defending backwards. Oh, sneak-a-magique. Magic of sneakiness. Did white have knight f7 for a moment here? Oh, yeah, there was a chance right here when the king went to h6. I suppose Alex's king should have gone to f6. Look at Alex down to 4 minutes here in the endgame. Boondock Striker with 40 minutes. Hard to see everything once you get low on time, but you used your time well up to this point. And this was some evil sneaking. Evil sneaking. What happened here? Boondock Striker won by resignation? Oh my god! In the middle of getting destroyed, white found a mating net with just these pieces? And there's no way to cover both? I didn't even imagine that was happening. I thought maybe you flagged or something. What the heck? Ay, ay, ay. That's magical. Your heart fell to the floor. Oh, I'm sorry to relive this moment with you so soon. It's dramatic. I mean, this rook c8 to c2, that was beautiful what you did. And then this move. Good night to you, Socrates. I envy you going to sleep. I envy you, and I appreciate you. All right, so I guess folks are saying this bishop g6 move could avoid the checkmates, right? Because knight g4, the king goes this way, and otherwise it defends that, right? So then one potential move for white in response is rook takes bishop, another is knight takes bishop. Either one might be winning. I think knight takes bishop, rook f2 is not totally clear. Because then when you go to make the checkmates again, this fixes it, right? But maybe this rook move is clean enough, and you've got just enough to win the endgame with the extra knight. Good night, Dotneb. Or Dotneb. Or Ben Dot. You figured the rook trade was winning. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It is. Fair enough. Man, that was crazy. I thought you pulled it off, basically, with this rook c2, bishop e4, and then this? Wow. Boondock Striker. Strikes. Strikes! All right. What else we got in this section right now? We've got this game here still going. Yeah, that was an epic game all the way by both players. Nothing else anyone else could say about that game. All right, what's going on here? The knight on b4 looks precarious. So what happened? Black tried to operate with a really risky tactic here, knight b4, based on pawn takes, queen takes. The white castles connecting the rooks and threatening pawn takes, and the bishop is lined up with the knight and the queen. It's hard to see that knight getting out. You would need some way to threaten something like a king or a queen. And they're hiding on the far side of the board to avoid any counter tactics. Eek, 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 eek. Absolutely, Dabo. I think it's much better, yeah. Because I think there are even players who actually get better from playing blitz, but I don't think many people have really deepened their chess play from bullet, right? But players like Nakamura and Nihal Sarin have gotten very good by playing copious blitz binges. That's for sure. This is not checkers, folks. Yeah. Sure. Looked at my Koganos games. Great. And how are you feeling, Dabo? How do you feel? That's perhaps the most important question. How do you feel having gone from bullet binges to blitz binges this week? Did it change anything for you in here? Yeah, Far Eastern, if you're someone who's too slow and is always getting low on time, you need to find your moments to play some more instinctive moves. And playing some blitz, it's very rare that I recommend it to somebody, but now and then you'll have a student who plays so slowly that you recommend that they go on some blitz benders and just get a little looser about playing the moves that occur to them. Okay, so the queen retreats from the diagonal of the bishop, and it looks like Gil should be able to run away with a free piece here. I'm just going to pop downstairs for a minute, see how things are going in the house. Be right back. I'll leave you guys with this game to look at. Let me see, how many games do I have going right now? Good night, Alex. Good night, Jake. All right, I'm going to give you guys a more complicated position than a position where pawn takes knight is on the board. So you've got something to look at for 2 minutes while I am going. A4 thrown in, huh? Oh, black's hoping to get this square for the knight, huh? By attacking the queen here. If she comes here, there's rook a5. If she comes here, it's more complicated. Is there any way to do this? And then this? Oh yeah, that should work. That should work, actually. It's super anti-positional, but that should work. Force her back here. Now black's position is raggedy positionally. But notice this piece is kind of controlled. This is coming in here. You might have to play e4 positionally to keep that knight at bay. But then, you know, potentially you're sacking another pawn, or potentially d5 as a break. Yeah, really unclear. a4, queen b5 played, rook a5 played in 4 seconds. So Stigma had that loaded up and ready to go. Dabo, I didn't see your answer to my question. How you feel this week? How has the switch from bullet to blitz felt for you? That's the last thing I need to know. I have made an agreement with my partner to end the stream earlier tonight for various fatigue and house and birthday reasons. So we're going to wind down the commentary early. The tournament obviously will just keep running and running and running for 24 hours as always. And tomorrow morning there will be the rapid tournaments, which I will be commenting as well tomorrow morning here. These 3 rapid arenas. Okay, you've just started with the blitz and you don't know how you feel about it yet. The goal is to set some new blitz rating records. Okay. No, Graham, these are just dojoers. I'm watching them play. Friday night fights so far is always me, or in the past, Jesse and Kostya. But it's basically always been the senseis commenting on people playing each other. But I do eventually want to vet some co-commentators and be able to tag in occasionally and play a game while somebody else comments. But right now, I'm firmly in the role of commentator for now. Bryant Park. Okay, well, yeah, if you're in New York City, there's a lot of good chess players there. Has been for many decades. It was the chess capital of the U.S. for a long time. And then I think it was maybe briefly in Texas before switching to St. Louis. But there was like a moment where Suddenly there are a bunch of teenage grandmasters coming out of Texas. The top one being Jeffrey Xiong. Well, that's a good point, Unagi-dan. In this position, queen b4 now. c5 doesn't work anymore because the rook is here. And if knight c6, you can go here, and you control these two light squares, and the knights can't yet blockade you, and you keep going. Very, very good point, Unagi-dan. And then you say black will try rook h5 for just direct counterattack. As the positional means aren't working, let's throw the kitchen sink. You can bring the last rook to the attack too with this insane maneuver. Beautiful. If you need it. Cool. Yeah, Graham, I mean, feel free to put it off as long as you want, but whenever the time is right, we will be happy. We will be happy to welcome you. That said, I'm going to kick off early tonight, folks, as I explained a couple minutes ago.